All right. Welcome everyone to the Cluster Add-ons meeting. Today is the 21st of January, and we don't have actions from last time. Yes, we also don't have a recording from last time. Does anyone remember what happened to it?
I know I have a backlog of recordings on my machine. I don't recall whether I actually recorded this one on my machine last time. So I don't remember who recorded it. We had some problems with the meeting key, if I recall.
Yeah, okay.
I think it was either myself or Lee. I don't know if Lee's here.
Yeah, no, Lee is in a plane somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, just let me know or send me the file and I'll add it to the YouTube. Cool. I had another small thing. It was about the repository name. It's not a hugely urgent thing to me. I just realized that we went from add-on operators to a broader definition of things we're looking at. And it might be easier to find if we have cluster add-ons consistently across Slack and all the other places. But I also don't know what it involves, if that's going to be, I don't know, infrastructure nightmare. Any any opinions?
Do we have a compelling reason to do so, I guess?
I mean,
I guess if it matches the matching is, yeah. It doesn't seem, yeah, I think we should try to do it. It might be we just create a new one. I don't know. I don't know how it works. But I'm in favor of the argument that it matches our Slack and subproject and all that.
Yeah. I mean, I can take an action to find out from somebody what it involves. I'll report back next time. All right, Nick, you have a PR open, and you wanted a review. I don't know, do you want to walk us through it, or anything in particular where you need a review? I think this is about PR. Is it 37?
Yep. I don't really need to put a screen or particularly walk through the PR. I just wanted to make a note of it's up there. It's been up there for a little while. I haven't really got any hits on it. It's still a draft. Is there a process for maybe taking it out of draft? Or like just in general, getting it in? I can't hear you, Justin, if you're talking.
Mouse click fail. I'm happy to take a look at this. How did you get it to be in this draft state? I've not seen this yet.
Oh, you can't see it?
No. I have not seen this on GitHub. Like, how did you tag it as a draft?
Yeah, so when you're creating a PR, at the bottom, I think it's like a little drop-down menu on the PR. So whatever it means, it's definitely a draft.
Okay. I mean, I'm certainly happy to take a look. I think other people, it'd be great if other people also had a look. I did not take a look.
Yeah, like some of the questions that I have are like what, and I can mark them on the PR as well. One was technical about like integrating with controller runtime and like removing APIs from a watch list since it's doing it dynamically. Some other ones are more general, like what API group are we using for these things? Because there seems to be some difference between the ones that are currently in add-on operators. So
cool. Yeah, thank you for this. I'll take a look, and I think the raising it here is the right channel, I think.
All right. Anything? Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
For the API version, is that around like the group that we're using, or is that the actual version, like V1 Alpha 1?
The question is more about the group, because some of them use like addons, installers like addons x-kas.io. Core DNS operator here is KAS.io. So questions like that.
I think, if I understand correctly, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, we have to use the x-kas.io for a lot of this stuff until we get it approved, right?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So unless you go to the Cube API review group and get approval for the APIs, then you need to use the x-kas.io.
But I think we should do that approval. I think it would be, it's a good idea to have like consistent APIs, and I think it just makes, I think we should work towards having that approval. So I would like us to get into Kate's IO. But in the meantime, yes, we might have to do x-Kate's.
And this also brings up an interesting kind of tangent where when we have APIs within the same API group, but possibly are different controllers, we typically like want them to live in the same package in Go, since we're generating these things together with Cube Builder usually. So installer, let's say, claims one group, and I want to belong to the same group, but I don't necessarily want the code to be part of installer. So like, how does this all shake out there? It's just another question we can answer asynchronously on this PR.
All right. Anything else on that PR or?
No, sorry for the awkward silence. I start getting some eyes on it because we haven't seen any like feedback.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, thanks a lot. Grant, you wanted to talk about curl or possible integration?
Yeah, so I brought this up last week. It was a little smaller group. So just to rehash, so it replicated. We have needed sort of a Kubernetes installer as just like part of our product for a long time, and so we've kind of have had one, and we open sourced the latest iteration of that, and we call it curl with a K, so KURL. And the idea is that you can create these different add-ons. We made those add-ons customized based. We have a handful of add-ons that we support today that we've like kind of built ourselves from different upstream projects. It's all based on kubeadm, and it's just like, I think it has some really interesting like parallels and integration points with the cluster add-ons SIG, and the idea that like we might be able to make curl compatible with the add-ons that are the spec that we're creating here. We could potentially also use some of the existing curl add-ons as sort of a foundation to create cluster add-ons, because we have like, I don't know, like 10. And if you go to curl.sh, which is sort of like this little hosted front-end UI that we created for folks to be able to specify different versions of these add-ons to create sort of a unique like component, their unique URL for that, install, and or an air gap download for that install, you'll kind of see what we're talking about. But the highlights are basically like, we built this because we needed it. We would love to contribute anything we can from it. We'd love to integrate any way we can from it. There's no we don't need anything proprietary in this. And so whatever we can do to sort of help, align and further the simplification of sort of like a raw Kubernetes install that has some of these necessary or common components sort of baked in, we'd love to collaborate on that. We have a few folks that are working basically full time on adding different components to this and maintaining and updating them. So yeah, and then I brought Mark along as well. So Mark basically sort of designed and sort of created the strategy behind this. He's our CTO and architect. And so if there's any additional questions or ways that we want to like talk about it, happy to have him answer questions and get involved.
I guess the question is, so this today does not use operators, or is this currently client side or server side, and how does that? We've been, just to clarify, we've been doing operators to date. That we're not tied to doing operators, but we've been doing operators today. But it'd be good to understand, like, is this client side, is this server side type thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. So today we built this as it's client side. So you run the installer and it installs Kubernetes, and basically all of the add-ons are ultimately, each add-on is a customization.yaml, which defines everything that's going to be deployed, and a bash script, because sometimes the bash script doesn't have to really include anything, but often it does things like sequencing CRDs and custom resource installation, or generating, certs or something like this that doesn't currently happen inside operators, or inside plain Kubernetes YAML without writing an operator. Like our Prometheus add-on that we have is the CoreOS operator for Prometheus, so it supports operators, but it's not operator based.
Cool, that makes sense. Thank you.
Well, like as Grant mentioned, like this is, a very, we've had something like this. This is like an open sourced version of something that we've had internally for quite a while now, and it's not necessarily a spec that we feel like, we want to either own, or that like this is exactly the right format for it moving forward. Like we're happy to find a way to like make this one effort, so we have like a single way to install cluster add-ons, and if that ends up being operator based or client side or a combination, like super happy to have that conversation.
How do you? Oh, go ahead, Justin.
Go ahead. No, you go for Sean.
How do you install updates? Like you install a cluster add-on, and then all of a sudden, like that thing needs to get an update to it. How do you install those updates?
Yeah. So we do, everything is packaged as a single bash script today, because we support air gap installs of Kubernetes and all the operators. And so we'll create a tar gzip that includes all the images and all the manifests and everything necessary for that specific package. The curl spec defines a list of, here's all the add-ons that I want inside here. So that curl spec will create a tar gzip that includes the images and everything. So to install an update, you just rerun the bash script with pointing to the latest tar gzip, or if you're connected to the internet, just rerun the bash script pointing to the spec, and it downloads them all and reapplies them. So it just does a kubectl apply because it's client side. We're not really, like, we don't do in cluster lifecycle management of the add-ons. That's like up to the user or the cluster admin to know, I want to rerun this.
I think there's a bunch of like really interesting things here. There's the mechanics of like getting a customized based add-on, I guess, into the cluster. And there's the work you've done to package some add-ons as customizable add-ons. I think maybe a great place to start might be like trying to pick one of those add-ons and get it into the operator framework and compare the two, like compare the operator approach to what you've been doing on the client side. And I was looking at like the lists or the 6 that you highlighted, and it seems, as far as I know, we don't have anyone working on the registry. So maybe that might be a good one to focus on if that was an interesting one. I don't know if Team Red Hat is going to say, actually, we have a perfect good operator for registry that I'm just not familiar with.
Is that like registry, like an image registry?
I believe so, like a Docker container registry.
It's just Docker distribution is all that one is.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a couple operators that manage registries. So, in OpenShift, we have an internal registry. So we have an operator that manages that one. And that one is based on the Docker distribution, the libraries for that. And then we also have an operator working on for Quay as well. So to run Quay on OpenShift.
We have some add-ons that aren't listed on that homepage. If you go into the repo and look in the add-ons directory, but we have things like, they're a little newer for us, Fluentd and Calico and Valero from VMware. So things that we just haven't highlighted on the homepage.
I mean, it's just a suggestion about one way to do it. I don't know which particular operator might be the best one, given I'm obviously not familiar with the whole space.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those. It depends on which registry you're trying to run, right? Like they're going to have different operational characteristics potentially. So not necessarily one size fits all on that one.
Cool. And just for my education, I'm curious how, because there's a few tasks that curl does sort of before the cluster before kubedm is run, right, Mark?
Yeah. So we, one thing that curl is doing that's kind of, I suspect, out of scope of cluster add-ons directly is like bringing the cluster along and installing and provisioning a Kubernetes cluster for you. And so we do some things around some pre-flights and ensuring that the machines are going to be capable of successfully running Kubernetes with the add-ons that you have selected.
Is that out of scope here for add-ons?
Sorry, can you clarify exactly what like matching
so
it?
Yeah, it's fine. Definitely can dive into a little more. We don't our curl project, like the primary use case of the curl project isn't somebody saying, I have a Kubernetes cluster up and running and I want to install this add-on into it. But it's more, I have some CentOS or some RHEL machines or Ubuntu, I have some Linux servers and I want to turn this into a Kubernetes cluster with all these add-ons already installed in it. So there are two different tasks, of provisioning Kubernetes with like the container runtime, which is, generally Docker right now for us, and all of that. And then the add-ons around the CNI and storage and registry and everything like this. Those are two different things that curl does. And so I think the question really is is the first part of that, which is taking Linux machines and getting Kubernetes up and running out of scope of the cluster, of the SIG cluster add-ons?
I'm reasonably sure the answer is yes there.
Yeah, I'm going to act Justin on this one. I think that it's, out of scope.
There is something I think interesting, which is, for example, as the version of Kubernetes changes, how do we match that to the compatible add-ons and manage the upgrades and sequence those things? But that would be, I think, where is vaguely in scope, but not driving the installation of Kubernetes itself. Do you agree with that, Jessica?
Yeah, I don't think we've really focused in this group so far on talking about installing Kube. It's definitely been about the add-ons once you've got a Kube.
Cool. And Jessica and Justin, then the operator methodology for deploying add-ons today, have you done anything around hooking that into reacting to upgrades to the underlying Kubernetes framework and then being able to have a lifecycle hook that does trigger something inside the add-on?
No, I think it would be the short answer, or no in terms of the OSS. I don't know if Red Hat has something, but I think we have talks about mechanisms around observing other versions of both Kube and other add-ons, but we have not, as far as I know, implemented anywhere.
Gotcha.
Yeah, as Justin alluded to, we have some stuff as part of our distribution where we do lifecycle a lot of the add-ons that are part of our platform as we lifecycle Kube. So that is kind of there today in some of our stuff. And a lot of what we talk about in this add-ons group, we're trying to take from what we've learned doing that ourselves and expand that out to everybody.
And so would that be in scope though?
Yes, sequencing of being able to not upgrade the add-on if it's going to host your cluster, for example, would definitely be in scope.
Yeah, and we're looking at some of that stuff. So in the operator framework group and the lifecycle manager, that's one of the things that we're thinking about is, like you just said, Justin, if we upgrade your cluster, but you have this particular add-on installed, what's that going to do? And how do we manage that? And do we block upgrades or not? And those kinds of questions, all that stuff is coming up. So definitely things that I think are in scope for these discussions.
Cool. And what are the other SIGs that you mentioned?
So the operator framework, Evan or Sean might be able to point you to where the SIG details are for that. That's it's not a Kube SIG. It's a project that's currently undergoing donation processes to CNCF, and it has its own meetings and stuff. But if you search for operator framework, you should be able to find the details for that. Yeah. Thank you, Sean.
And then you say something about lifecycle as well?
I just put that one in there too.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's part of the operator framework.
Yes, it's one of the components of the framework. Yeah.
Yeah. The OLM thing. Right. Okay. Cool. Mark, any more thoughts or questions around this?
No, I think I don't have any specific questions. I think it's as we're continuing to build out add-ons and enhancing curl and releasing stuff around updating Kubernetes and managing all that. We'd love to continue to join the calls and see how we can share and make sure that we're not building something that's completely disconnected from the community.
Is there a link to the spec of how you guys package up the add-on? Sorry if I can't find it in my clicking links.
Yeah, it's in the there is definitely all the code is in the replicated HQ/curl repo. Let me see if I can find a link to the actual spec, and if I don't get it before the end of the call, I'll drop it into the cluster add-ons Kubernetes channel, Slack channel.
Thank you.
I wanted to follow up there. I think that's a pretty good place for us to collaborate on, because every solution that we're looking at and have talked about has the same problem of how do I just talk about a set of manifests that I want to represent an add-on and apply to the cluster? And everyone has slightly different variants on this one thing. So if we could make some headway on agreeing on that, that might help us build other tooling around it.
Cool. Yeah, we have a doc on how to package an add-on, which is I'll put it into the Slack, into the the chat on the Zoom. This is definitely a little bit more like I'm an add-on author and I want to package it, but what, you know, internally we create the add-on archives as air gap packages in a really similar like format. So I think that link there will walk it through, but I think that's a good feedback too, is we should be a little bit, we should define that spec in the repo and call it out a little bit. So.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and post a link to a draft KEP that we've been talking about that's related to this. Be really great to get some feedback on that and see if you guys are thinking the same things before we make a real KEP and like get some discussion going.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Join really quick.
Yeah, and I was I think I explained last time that we didn't intentionally set off to build something like just different than what was happening here. We actually just didn't know that this existed, and so I was like just searching around or something and saw this like, I don't know, a month ago, and I was like, oh crap, like we should probably try to align better. So there's not like a you know, there's no intention of like splitting this off. It was just like, oh, well, we were building this thing that we needed, and we realized that like this had very similar intentions. So yeah, happy to be here now.
All right. Any more questions on curl? Then Justin, you wanted to announce your demo?
Yes, I remember. Like, I thought we talked about previously about like the idea of doing like some like show and tells. I think here, if I'm not getting confused, but I think we have the pieces going into COPS for at least an implementation that I think is a little different from the way Lee has done it for how we can put add-ons into COPS. So I thought I might try to show that in 2 weeks. But yeah, it involves just basically adding extra objects alongside the cluster that are CRDs and instances of CRDs, and then having the operators built into COPS, but raises some interesting problems and questions as well.
Super. Right, Evan just shared a link. Is that the draft KEP you were referring to earlier?
Yes, that's it. So
sweet.
Awesome. Thanks, Evan.
Perfect.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for sending this.
Cool. Anything else? Yeah, thanks for adding that to the minutes, Evan. Cool. All right. Have a good one, everyone. It's great to see you again. See you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, folks.